OIC, otherwise known as the Omnipresent Information Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Peterson.
And I'm the co-host, Noah Hansen. The Omnipresent Information Connection Podcast is all about your world and your unique walk on this path called life. We present fascinating, life-changing information from around the world that has been validated. We also authenticate the information by providing you with links to where you can find out more about what we are talking about on our show. This podcast includes historically accurate, genuine facts that have helped shape our daily lives into what they are today. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. I'm here with Kevin Peterson, of course. Kevin Peterson's cheering for himself over here.
Absolutely.
And we are doing the Principles podcast today.
Yes.
And when we are talking about principles, we're not talking about the high school principal that you know and love.
Not the vice principal either?
Nope, not the vice principal either.
All right.
We're talking about principles, which are what, Kevin?
Principles are the starting blocks, the foundation blocks, if you've been in track and field, if you've ever been into sports, you've got to be able to create a foundation to be able to launch anything positive and productive. And so principles are the building blocks to a brand new you.
That's right. So principles are the foundational element in anything that we do. We need to have good principles. Otherwise, when we're building on that foundation, it's all going to collapse eventually. So we've done another podcast that has to do somewhat with this. That'll be in the link in the description box of this podcast. And it's all about success tips. It's all about how to go about your life in a way that you can succeed in every area of your life that you are desiring to succeed in. And without good principles, without a good foundation, this is something that cannot be accomplished.
Correct.
And that's a biblical teaching as well. You set your foundation on a rock, it's going to stand. If you set your foundation on sand, your house is going to fall.
Absolutely.
So, of course, there are so many successful tips and
techniques
that are presented in our Holy Bible. And I believe that the principles are a major one. So we're going to dive deep into what principles are and how we can acquire the right principles in life.
There you go.
We're also going to be presenting to you a certain thought process or a certain way of thinking, which is called the first principles thought. And if any of you listeners have heard of this, we'd love to hear your comments on what you feel about this and how it's worked out in your life and how you've seen it being able to make you successful in different areas of your life. We want to hear your testimonies about what we were talking about on these podcasts too. So make sure you meet us in the comments section.
And like it and share it, because the more that you like it, the more that you share it, the more that your voice gets heard as well.
That's right. That's right. We've got forums on our website, inanewway.com, where you can talk with a group of people like mine who just want to tell each other about the benefactors that have helped them along in their lives, just like we are telling you about all these wonderful tips on this podcast. So let's get into principles. Principles are, like Kevin said, a major aspect of the foundations we have in life. And one major principle that we want to talk about in this podcast is a hunger for truth.
Authenticated truth.
That's right. A hunger for the authentic truth. And if you listen to our values series on this OIC podcast, we talked about how the value of truth, authenticated truth, is so very important, because if you don't value authenticated truth, then you are only valuing the truth that is your own, the truth that you've made your own. And when you are presented with new information, as we outlined in this podcast, the value of truth, then you won't be able to accept new truth when it's presented to you and get rid of the falsified truths that you've taken upon yourself. Now, this is something that all humans do throughout their lives on Earth. And in order to sort out what authenticated truth is, you have to have an open mind. Correct, Kevin?
Well, yeah, not only an open mind, but you have to be able to keep your mind in mind as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so what I'm giving a hint to is that you have to be able to literally filter your mind to be able to recognize what is truth, what is false, and then to be able to find a empowering system to move forward into being able to embed it and have it be a part of who you are.
Yeah, so not even just acquiring truth, but applying it to your life and allowing it to make the changes just naturally that the truth can make.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to have a hunger for authenticated truth, you also have to, well, actually, in order to be able to acquire authenticated truth, you have to know where it is acquired. You have to know where to get it.
Mm-hmm.
So, want to talk a little bit about this, Kevin? Where do you think we can find a one source of authenticated truth?
Walmart?
Walmart.
No. Bottom line is that you got to be able to go to a source that has been known for at least minimum of 50 to 100 years, because you want to be able to have several familiar family references to be able to back up the information that is being said. And so if your great grandmother or grandfather has said it and someone else had said it, then the chances are the source is pretty accurate. The information is pretty accurate, right?
Yeah, I hear that.
So truth in true reality is passed down from generation to generation. And it's passed down due to lineage and our heritage. But more importantly, it's a verbal roadmap to your very existence in being able to acquire and accomplish goals, dreams, and desires unthought of, unseen, until you've heard of them. And then you then create that desire, that hunger to be able to want it in the first place.
Yeah, so in history repeats itself, common phrase that we hear. History does repeat itself, and it's not only the mistakes in history that repeat themselves, but it's also the successes in our history that repeat themselves as well. So if you mirror image the successful bullet points that other people have followed in order to acquire their success, then more than likely you'll be able to mirror image their success as well.
Yeah, because getting back to what I was saying is that you have to have a direction, you have to have a pathway, you have to be able to know what to do with the information once you receive it. And so the first thing is that you want to be able to discover, to be able to see for yourself the authenticated truth within what has been said. And so you end up researching, you end up doing your own homework, you end up trying to be able to solve and filter out, okay, what part of this information is authenticated truth, what is then ad-libbed or been
Paraphrased.
So that you can be able to adopt it yourself, because information is an adoption. And it's how you adopt information that creates the outcome. So if you've been around negativity, which everyone has, and if you've been around only people that are not feeding you properly, not only are you malnourished in body, but mind and spirit as well.
That's right. And we have talked about how body, mind, and spirit are all one whole. But if one of those three aspects is out of whack, then the other two are most likely going to be out of whack as well.
Absolutely, because you want to be able to have a hunger on a daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly basis. But how do you find it? How do you acquire it? That's what we're getting into, is to be able to dial in the source of authenticated truth that you can almost go anywhere on the planet and have people say, yeah, that information is correct.
All right, so the principles that we've pointed out already are you have to have a hunger for truth.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to know where to acquire the truth
Mm-hmm.
and how to acquire, how to discern.
Mm-hmm.
And then what? You have to have the desire to incorporate it into your daily and weekly life practices.
Mm-hmm. Because if you don't, it won't.
That's right.
And you have to understand is that, yeah, someone's telling you you have to be the director or the guide to it. It just can't self-guide itself. It only lives through you. And so, if you want the living truth, the living word, to be able to come alive, you've got to come alive. You just can't keep allowing other people to be responsible for a very beautiful reward that is deserving of you.
I hear that, Kevin. So next step after you incorporate it is teaching other people. You want other people to emulate and do the same thing that you know works.
And people are saying already, well, no, I'm tired of being a teacher, trainer, motivator, director, and guide. I'm really tired of being able to have to be able to step in and be able to set the example. I'm really tired of, but here's the whole thing. If you don't, no one will. And for you to be able to have a sustainable life, to be able to have the things that you want and need and desire in life, is that you have to be, and this is very promotable, by the way, a little bit selfish and a little bit self-centered in order to be able to maximize the truth in a new way.
Yeah, you have to guard your hearts. You have to guard your knowledge.
Well, not only that, but you have to be able to know that the truth is not ever going to hurt you or harm you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to only enable you to be a better person in every way, starting the very moment that you then do what? Acquire it, right?
That's right. Yep. So, unfortunately, the truth does seem to hurt many different people because of their rejection of the truth, which is why, as we pointed out already.
Well, but it's not the rejection. You have to understand is that through most of all adult lives, we've been lied to, we've been scammed, we've been gypped, we've been giving half truth, half principles, whatever. We really have been not setting the right example. Most people for most of our lives. Now, what ends up happening is that we hear the truth and we go, that's just nonsense. But the truth is that when you absolutely know what the truth is, it sets you free. And it's crazy. You don't have to work at freedom. You don't have to work at enjoying yourself. You don't have to work at being happy. When you apply authenticated truth, it naturally puts you in that state of mind because it doesn't hurt you, it only helps you. And in that process, you yearn to be able to want more, and then it just naturally becomes you.
Yeah, so get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because when you are feeling uncomfortable and someone's presented some profound wisdom to you, then you need to be able to traverse that uncomfortability to be able to accept it and apply it to your life.
And how do you do that?
Well, you see how the mentor or the teacher who's taught you this wisdom is applying it to their life. That's one of the main ways you can learn this, is see how your peers, mentors,
coach,
how they are doing it. But also, you need to be able to study it. You need to be able to meditate on it. You need to be able to let it resonate within you before you can allow it to resonate.
Yeah, but no, the listeners are going to tell you, I don't have time. I'm working 2 jobs and I can barely make ends meet.
Sure.
And I don't have the time to be able to then pick up a book or get into an audiobook and to be able to learn authentic information. So how can you be able to present it to me quicker? Well, the bottom line is that there is no quicker way. If you want to be able to be free, you have to be able to set aside freedom time in order to be able to acquire it in your life.
That's right. You have to be dedicated. You have to have a hunger. Now, this is something that I know very well, what you just pointed out, because I was there. I was there pretty recently. You've had a good many years of living and walking the truth that you've acquired. But me, I have just gotten out of my late teen years, just 4 years ago. I'm 24 at the time of this recording. And so I was very recently in a position where all I did was I worked a job, then I came home, and I would play video games, or I would watch TV, or I'd do anything to be able to escape the world that I was in. And now, having switched from that time spent in entertainment, I have switched it to being able to now acquire truth in my free time, but also it's transformed so that now that is a form of entertainment. I really do enjoy learning now on a daily basis.
Yeah, because when you can use it for personal benefit, but other people benefit because you're benefiting,
That's right. Yep.
then it's both selfish and rewarding to everyone you come in contact with.
Oh, yeah.
And so you end up creating an environment that's attractive, that's desirable, that makes people yearn to be able to want to be near you and to be able to talk to you and reach out to you because you're actually living a life that everyone, well, a good majority of people want to be able to live, to be happy, to be fulfilled, to be joyful, to be able to enjoy life instead of enjoy bills and debt
That's right.
and death,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes. So those principles are extremely important. I believe they are the foundation principles to have a hunger for truth, to know where to acquire it, to know how to discern between truth and untruth, to be able to apply it to your life, and then to be able to emulate it towards others into other people's lives just by being a quiet example even will work. And then seeing how other people's lives are changed just by your own transformation.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's move on to what first principles thought is. First principles thought is the way of thinking where everything is broken down into smaller parts.
Mm-hmm.
For example, an essay is made of paragraphs, paragraphs of sentences, sentences of words, and words of letters. And so breaking it down to the most simplified, basic form of anything that we can talk about. This is used in math, this is used in anything. And so then, if every smaller part is made remarkable, then the whole should be remarkable as a result. So if the letters are remarkable, if the sentences and words are remarkable, and then the paragraphs are remarkable, working your way up in writing this essay, for example, then the entire essay should be remarkable as well. That is what first principles thought basically is. First principles thought is good for teaching, starting the lesson in the first basic principles and moving up step by step to more complex ideas.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to teach people the most complex thing you've ever learned in your life, then you're going to have to start simply, just like you most likely had to start simply.
Absolutely. And you have to understand, Noah, in order to be able to manifest, in order to be able to bring forward, in order to be able to be the information giver in a new way, is that it has to be able to resonate with you completely today. Because if the information doesn't resonate with you, if it doesn't jive with you, if it doesn't make sense to you, then it's hard to be able to apply it. So you have to be able to find something, a relationship between the living word and the living God that inspires you to be able to read it in the first place.
Amen. And that's profound because I do believe that God is the one who inspires you to read his word.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's also the one who reveals things to you through that reading. It's the same thing with prayer. God is the one who inspires you to pray, and then he's right there praying with you.
Right.
It's very profound.
Yes, in many ways. Because the gift is knowledge. The gift is wisdom. The gift is being able to have something that you once lost or was taken away from you or wasn't taught to you. And it's literally returned back to the sole owner of the person reading it, hearing it, applying it, and then being it.
Yes, I hear that too, definitely. Now, first principles thought is obviously very much about resourcing yourself, about getting to the source. When you break things down to their simplest form, what you are essentially doing is going back to its source, right? And so this is very biblical as well. This is very much part of God's teaching because obviously God is the source of all good gifts. He's the source of all good things. Now, free will has allowed us at this time on this planet to be able to get off track, to be able to move away from God, and then hopefully, by God's will, be able to learn the lesson and then return to God, return to source.
Correct.
So when you apply that type of teaching to every area of your life, then what you will find yourself doing is going back to God more often, more and more.
And the reason why, and this is not a God push, but this is more of a intellectual.
This is what I've seen to be true too. Yep.
So, in order to be able to have authenticated wisdom, knowledge, and information, you have to be first thankful of the creator that created it in the first place. Second is that it becomes even more intimate and more beautiful when you can literally read it and hear it in a different language. But it becomes even more beautiful when the people that you've been teaching, training, motivating, directing, and guiding for so many years start exemplifying and being able to use the words that you said to them back to you in conversation. So you know you're on the right path and pathway is when you have been able to speak enough wisdom to someone to where they can be able to recite it back to you and know without unquestionable certainty that it's correct. That's how we initially, listeners, please listen up. This is how initially we taught our children. Prior to school systems, prior to an educational school system, you had elders within the family that would sit with the children and literally talk to them for hours about their ancestors, about all the different beautiful things that makes them who they are, right? Through the stories that they could be able to back up, and you know that every grandmother and grandfather had some kind of a trinket or something about their past, no matter what it was, that they could refer to. You know, this is how we used to shoe horses, and my grandfather would be able to show me an old horseshoe. I'm like, wow, and the nails were flat, and you know, everything became very mysterious because there's new technology and there's a new way of doing things. But my grandfather showed me on how to be able to create the shoe in the first place out of metal. Then to be able to open up the shoe, to be able to have the holes of opportunity, to be able to then nail it into a horse in order for him to be able to get the point. And so that story has lingered literally all throughout my childhood. In order to be able to get a good grip on anything, is that you have to be able to know on how to be able to create the grip, the strength, and the grit in order for you to be able to have a good fit, right? And so if you want to be able to reestablish, recreate, come up with something uniquely your own, I encourage you to be able to have quiet time with you and your family, to be able to tell stories of yesteryear on how things were made, how things were built, how things were done. And in that process, you'll discover your own authenticated truth that not only will it set you free, but it'll become a priceless gift that you never expected to receive in the first place.
Now, that's a great principle. Putting family first, being able to learn from your family. That's a great principle right there. Now, in future episodes, we're going to be getting more into principles in different cultures. And for one example, Stoicism is going to be on the next podcast here. And then we're going to be getting into the biblical principles, what those are and why they are so important.
Yeah, and listeners, you need to be able to listen up. When we're going over the biblical side of things, I'm literally taking you from the original source of where the original information came from prior to the Bible being the Bible that it is today. Not many people will take you on that beautiful journey in a new way. But that's what we're going to do on that day, is to be able to let you know why the vowels, the adjectives, the pronouns, and other words are put in there the way that they are. Because when you understand each and every sentence to your life, you have then something to live for.
Before we go, one more thing about first principles thought is how to become a first principle thinker. Well, it has a lot to do with asking the right questions. When you ask the right questions, it allows you to break things down more simply.
More importantly, you can ask all the right questions all day long in the month of Sundays. But if you're not willing to be a willing receiver to receive it, then it just becomes a wasted word, right?
That's right. Yep.
So the very first thing is that no matter what you've been through, listener, you have to be able to open up your mind and know that authenticated truth will never hurt you. It'll never betray you. It'll never be used against you. And it'll always be a comforter, a guide, and a gift to everyone that you come in contact with because of how resonating in power it is to enable you to then become empowered by it to be you.
Now, another example of first principle thinking is a tree, a fruit bearing tree. So you have the fruit, and the fruit's in front of you. You can pick it, you can eat it, and it's wonderful. It tastes good, all that good stuff. But you don't know where that fruit came from if you're just looking at the fruit. You have to look at the fruit, and then it's connected to a branch. The branch is connected to a hole, one hole, which is the trunk. And then the trunk is connected to the roots. So a first principle thinker is going to see all those different aspects of what made the fruit what it is, what allowed you to have it in the first place. And then they're going to go even deeper, and they're going to see that it's not only the roots that start the growth of the fruit, it's the soil. So you need to have good soil in the very first foundation of it all in order to bear that good fruit. And I believe this is very metaphorical when you think about how we give good fruit to other people. It has to start with good soil. It has to start in a good environment, an environment where that fruit can grow. And so that environment itself is what you're talking about, Kevin. That's that open mind, that willingness to receive and resonate with the truth.
Mm-hmm. But prior to the tree growing and being what it was, there was a lot of founders, a lot of people that had walked the land prior while it was growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the ages, throughout the centuries, throughout the years that that tree was growing, it grew by listening. It grew by the sun. It grew by the rain, right?
Yes.
It had to be able to literally allow every element of life to be able to come to the tree for it to be able to know that it is the tree of life, to then to be able to branch out, to be able to then give comfort as in the form of shade to those that have been heated in the battle of getting there in the first place.
Amen and hallelujah to that. Now, we are just about out of time here. One last thing about that tree metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
A apple tree bears as many apples in every season as people can get from it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It never stops bearing apples as long as it's alive. And it gives it out freely. It doesn't really lose anything by those apples being picked. It's selfless.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe selflessness is one of the main principles that's going to allow you to have a foundation that bears good fruit.
Noah, let me ask you a question. How intelligent is an apple tree?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of different things that could go into that answer. The spiritual side of trees, the physical side of trees, the intelligence behind its design.
Here's why I love apple trees. An apple tree and its vines, its roots, its branches, its stems can clearly and unquestionably know when fruit is ripe versus bad. And it literally self ejects the bad apple from the vine without human intervention. It knows that that which has grew to be a bad apple. And without asking permission, without asking for approval, it naturally discards it to the ground, allowing the good apple to be able to grow and to be able to become more enriched by the sacrifice of the bad apple. Now, the bad apple then falls on the ground and decays. That decay helps grow the roots in the ground to be able to have that tree grow stronger.
Yes.
So, was that bad apple truly a bad apple, or was it just a self appointed vessel that knew its place?
Mm-hmm. I hear that. Now, when an apple is fallen on the ground and it's rotting, what you're saying is the outer part of that apple around the seeds is going to help those seeds to grow, regardless of, there being worms or whatever in it. I really like that a lot because it shows that even the things that we have thought were true that turned out not to be true, they can still have a seed in it that does good things.
Correct.
And what would those good things be? Well, lessons learned, what not to do, right?
Well, not only what not to do, but along the way of the decay, you're actually enriching the ground for which you had come in the first place.
Yes.
And so even the tree protects the bad apple, because even a bad apple creates positive growth when you allow it to be able to decay without any intervention from the good apple that shines above it.
Thank you very much, Kevin. This has been a wonderful podcast. I think that it's been very metaphorical, and I love that. I love those metaphors.
So, in closing, when you are talking about principles, make yourself accountable to being able to decipher, to be able to utilize, and to be able to grow the truth in a new way starting today. So we encourage you to be able to go to our website. Now, you're going to hear us say that a lot, but understand, listeners, is that your voice matters. You have no idea how powerful and how wise you are until you're in a community of other people that have the same thoughts that you do, to where you can be able to resonate and grow and to be able to remove your bad apples and starting the beautiful foundation of the principles that are you.
Yes, very well said, Kevin. So if there's any principles that we've pointed out to you on this podcast or on our website that have resonated with your soul and that you've applied to your life, seen the benefit of, then we'd love to hear about it. So you can comment on this podcast. You can go to the forums page of our website. You can get in contact with us one-on-one if you'd like to, through the contact page on our website as well. And we'd love to hear about it. We'd love to hear how our words are resonating with you. And if there are any principles that we have not yet pointed out, we'd love to hear them as well. What resonates with your soul. Bring that to inanewway.com, because this is a conglomerate of information that can benefit other people's lives in every area of their life. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Omnipresent Information Connection. We will meet you on the next episode.
This has been another life-enhancing, authenticated podcast aired by the OIC and brought to you by the faithful OIC sponsors and contributors. Please tune in every week and subscribe to our podcast. And while you're there, explore our website with all the posts, videos, and podcasts that we have created with you in mind. While you're on the journey through our website, you will see our Patreon page where you can become a faithful contributor yourself with the freedom to be a part of our team today. Thank you.